You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Love Talk Live. I'm your host, Jaime Bronstein, and today I have with me Christian de la Huerta. Welcome.
Thank you, Jaime. I'm so delighted and honored to be here with you.
I'm so excited to interview you because you seem extraordinary. You wrote a book. If anybody can guess what the book is, it's right here. And it's right behind him, Awakening the Soul of Power.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Christian, and then we'll get into some questions. So, with 30 years of experience, Christian de la Huerta is a sought-after spiritual teacher, personal transformation coach, and leading voice in the breathwork community. He has traveled the world offering inspiring and transformational retreats, combining psychological and spiritual teachings with lasting and life-changing effects. An award-winning, critically acclaimed author, he has spoken at numerous universities and conferences and on the TEDx stage. His new book, Awakening the Soul of Power, was described by multiple Grammy Award winner Gloria Estefan as a balm for the soul of anyone searching for truth and answers to life's difficult questions. More information about, and you'll be plugging this again later, about your book, Christian de la Huerta, is www.soulfulpower.com. Now, a little bit about the book. If you long for healthier relationships and a life filled with meaning and purpose, this book holds the keys to getting what you want. Awakening the Soul of Power will help you heal toxic relationship patterns, negotiate power struggles successfully, stop cheating yourself and playing small, and conquer insecurity and unworthiness. That's amazing.
Thank you, Jaime. Thanks so much for saying that. And by the way, congrats on being acknowledged by Yahoo Finance as the #1 relationships coach.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet that you...
Impressive. Good, look at you.
Thank you. We're just going to be like giving each other compliments back and forth, I can tell. Thank you. That's so sweet. So can you tell us, how did you get the inspiration to write this book? I know I just said what it's about, but like, obviously, tell us more in depth what it's all about.
Well, it's interesting that you asked me how I got the inspiration, because I was actually sitting in meditation, and for only the second time, now it's happened 3 times, but at the time it was only the second time where I actually heard audible words, and they were the soul of power. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I got up, I got the URL and forgot about it. And about a month later, I had submitted another proposal for another book to an agent that I was working with at the time in New York. And she said, yeah, I'd love to work with you, but I want to see some of these marketing ideas implemented before we pitch it to a publisher. I had probably spent 2 months writing this term paper, this huge proposal. So I was like, yikes, like putting on the brakes, what do I do next? And then it took me like 3 days to kind of realize. And I asked myself, if I weren't writing for the advance, what would I really write about? Mm. And then I thought, wow, if I really do believe, because I've been saying for a long time that the single most important thing that needs to happen in the world is the empowerment of women. And then I thought, women's empowerment, the soul of power is like, hello, duh. So how do we step into power in a different way, right? That's not about hierarchy. That's not about control. That's not about fear, about force, about domination. That doesn't require us to push anybody down and step on them in order for us to feel powerful.
Well, it sounds like what you're writing about is that inner power. Like when we are connected with ourselves, our intuition, when we're unconditionally loving ourselves, that's the power. It's empowerment.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so I talk about, how many of us have this ambivalent relationship to power. We want it and we're afraid of it. We think that we might abuse it. And part of the reason for that is that we confuse the types of power. So, we think about worldly power or the power of the ego, ego power, which no wonder, that's the one that we read about every day, and these horrible abuses of power that we've all experienced. But then there's this other kind of power, right? The soulful power, the spiritual power that comes from within. Nobody can give it to us. Nobody can take it away. And it's constant, and it's humble, and it's actually more powerful.
Oh my God. I mean, it's when you can tap into that inner power, it's gold. It's magic. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
Yeah. And like I said, it's like, the first one, worldly power, we tend to associate with externals. How much money people have, are they famous? Are they some kind of hierarchy, whether it's a corporate ladder or religious hierarchy or social hierarchy or political status. But those things are all outside of us. Right. So they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. Whereas the other one is the soulful power is like, nobody can take it away from us. We are the only ones that can stifle it and not express it.
Yeah, I know. I always talk about how we have control over what we let into our bubble. So it's kind of what we're talking about. Like, if we are feeling good inside and we've tapped into our magic and our inner power and everything, the outside, what happens in the outside world cannot affect our peace. But it takes practice to be able to stay in that place of peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what you're saying is like, really, like, that's ultimate personal power, right? Because life is going to continue throwing curveballs our way. Always, right? We can count on that. Just totally unexpected, mind-blowing things are going to just throw us off. And that we were never going to control. But what you're talking about is that what we can control is how we show up in response to it, how we respond. And when we look at it from that perspective, it's like we pop out of the victim place. Like, we never again have to feel victimized, because we always, no matter what happens, we get to choose how we're going to be in response to it. Talk about empowerment.
When you identify as a victim, you're giving the universe more reasons to just keep validating that you're a victim. They'll keep giving you reasons. Mm-hmm. And, this whole life happens for us, not to us.
Exactly.
So we can look at it as, well, this happened for a reason. What is the learning opportunity here?
Exactly. And that's, to me, that is the bottom line in terms of personal empowerment. That is the main one. And who inspires me about that is Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist. Yes. Who spent years in concentration camps, lost everything, everybody, his whole family, his everything. And so being a psychiatrist, like, he would be in this most incredible, inhuman place and try to figure out why some people survived and others didn't. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it didn't have to do with, according to his observations, it had nothing to do with money or intelligence or socioeconomic status, education, physical brawn, strength, beauty. None of that mattered in there. What did seem to matter was the people who seemed to survive were those who had a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. Mm-hmm. So how important for us to get in touch with what that is for us. And so he said that they could take everything away from him, except for one thing: the ability to choose how he would be in response to it. Mm-hmm. So, without minimizing any of our traumas, right? Because we've all got our own pain and stuff. But if he can do it there, certainly we can do it in our lives.
Yeah, he's so inspirational. And there's a quote, and I don't know if it's him or David Hawkins, between stimulus and response.
That's him.
There's a space.
Yeah.
There's a field. Or is that Rumi? I will meet you there.
Well, that's Rumi. Yeah, but the first part was Frankl. The second part is
stimulus and response. There's an opportunity. There's a choice. You have a choice in that space.
That's it. That's the key to freedom.
It totally is. And this is also making me think of Oprah. I think maybe during her, when she introduced Eckhart Tolle about, she was talking about the same thing, that there is that moment. There's always that moment where you have a choice. What are you going to do at that moment?
That's it. We always have a choice. Not about what happens, but how we respond to it. That we always have a choice about. And
I'm glad that you said about what happened, because I work with my clients on not having an attachment to the outcome.
Right.
But as long as you're, with whatever choice you're going to make in that moment of how to respond, as long as you're in your integrity and responding from your authentic self, that's all that matters.
That's right. I mean, and there are some spiritual teachings that say that at a soul level, we choose everything. That we choose the parents we were born into, and the countries, and the traumas, the illnesses. I don't know about that. I don't know that that's the way the system is set up. But I know for sure, without any doubt, that no matter what happens, no matter the curveballs, we get to choose how we show up in response. That I have no question about.
Yeah, and it's like, do we want to show up in our loving or in our fear?
Right. Or reacting, or defensive, or feeling threatened, or taking it personally. And that's which
we recommend showing up in your love, by the way, in your loving.
Say it again?
I'm saying you and I, for the viewers, we recommend showing up in your loving.
Oh my God, it totally works so much easier, so much better.
Okay, so I want to ask you some questions. So I love that you talk about there's always, it's kind of like what you were talking about, like this choice, but this is more like there's a yes and there's a no. And you talk about that and how it's so important to honor your yeses, not, you don't say yes for anybody else. So tell us more about that.
Well, I'm not sure whether, are you talking about how we know whether it's the ego talking or the higher power, or we're talking about boundaries, having boundaries?
In your notes, it looked like you were talking about like honoring yourself and not what society.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so you said giving your power away when you say yes, even though it's a no.
Right.
But whatever you just said, let's talk about that after. Have you ever said yes when inside you really felt no? That's just one example of the many ways we sell out on our power to avoid conflict or for acceptance.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, how many times have we done that, right? We said yes to avoid conflict, because we settle for morsels of pseudo love or pseudo acceptance. We hate confrontation. We're afraid of conflict. So we diminish ourselves and we stifle our inner truth and our like bottom line desires and our authentic selves for those morsels of acceptance or love or out of fear. And it's like, oh my God, and what a way to go. What a way of selling ourselves, and cheaply.
So what do you recommend? I don't know if this is in your book or when you work with people, how do you recommend getting out of that cycle?
Well, which I'm sure is the work that you do as well. It's like the more that we strengthen our sense of self, the more that we do whatever work, whether it's coaching, therapy, breath work, so that we can identify, the more that we can learn about how the mind works, about understanding the ego mind, which I really get to in this book, like really explaining clearly the ego and its machinations and its shenanigans and how it keeps us in a self-imposed prison of limitation and fear. So the more we do all that work on ourselves, which is heroic, by the way, right? It's a conscious way of living, which takes work. And that's why this book is the first of a series of 3, and it's called Calling All Heroes. So what does it mean to live heroically? But the more that we do that, and the more that we strengthen our sense of self-worth, it's like the less that we are dependent on external validation. So that we can get to the place where the more that stronger that we feel about ourselves in our sense of self, then we can have clearer boundaries. We can learn how to say no, and knowing that the relationships are going to survive, that people will adjust, and that the more that we are the truth of ourselves in the world, like if people are accustomed to us being a doormat, it's going to take a while for them to adjust, but eventually they're going to get it, right? It's like, they're acting differently, and we're going to be clear about what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and everybody benefits.
I love boundaries. That's just like it's not underrated, but just when you really think about what it means, it's just saying like, this is what I need. Like, take it or leave it. And if the person doesn't like you showing up as you and honoring you, then that relationship isn't supposed to be. And if it happens to be a family member, then that's a little stickier. But there are ways to learn how to respond, because we have a choice in our response.
Yeah. And you're totally right. I mean, what I'm hearing you saying is like, as we start changing and transforming and reclaiming our power, is that possibly not every relationship will survive that adjustment. If there are some people that are used to and benefiting from us being a doormat,
Right.
they may not like this change in us, but blessings, have a blessed life.
I was going to say,
But the way that this is not going to work anymore, right? We either figure out a different way of doing it or have a great life. And I love you and have a wonderful journey.
yeah, I always say bless their soul. Like, do you use that a lot in your like daily life? Like bless them, do you use that language?
Were you raised in the South, or is that the authentic bless your soul?
Oh my God. So I've been saying, I'm 43 now. I've been saying bless their soul for, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 years. And when I first started saying it, my father said, you sound like an old lady from the South. I say it probably like once a day.
Except you say it authentically. In the South, it has like this sort of double, like a jab. It's like bless your soul. Oh, bless your soul.
Oh.
And underneath you're saying, well, like screw you, but oh, bless your soul.
Oh my God. No, I mean, yes, I say it from an authentic place. And it sounds like you do too. You didn't say bless your soul, but you just said something like bless them, bless them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like blessings. Have a great life.
Yeah, but we don't need to have a life together if we're not vibing.
That's right.
If you're not like validating who I am.
That's right. And talk about freedom again, right? Like
now that is power to say, you know what, this is a toxic relationship. I'm not getting anything out of it. I just don't need this in my life.
That's right.
It feels good.
That's right. And to get to that place where we're so, in such deep relationship with ourselves and degree of self-love and self-acceptance and self-worth, is that if it means that we're gonna be alone, then so be it. But no longer are we willing to sell out and to sell ourselves short.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about really romantic relationships, which is my thing, then there will be the next person that will be better suited for you. It's all about finding the right person anyway.
That's
and
right.
You won't be alone for long. And it's better to be alone, literally alone, than feeling lonely in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my relationships retreat, I paraphrase the Course in Miracles, which I think it's kind of what you're saying too.
Yeah.
And saying that it's not our job to look for love, but to look within ourselves for the obstacles to love. So as we do our own work of healing and clearing those unhealthy patterns, right? Because if we are not respecting and honoring ourselves, that's all we can expect the other person to do, is to honor and respect us at that level. So the more that we honor and respect and love ourselves, that's what we're going to attract. And we're going to let go of all those subconscious patterns that keep us attracting the wrong people or falling for people who are not available or not a match.
Yeah, and I say our outside experiences are a reflection of our inner reality. So the more that we show up as who we truly are, the more that we will be able to manifest that right person for us.
Yeah. You and I have a very similar philosophy and approach.
We speak the same language.
Yeah. And we both love pizza, by the way.
Oh, you saw my bio that I love pizza. Literally, if I were on an island, that's my food, and a Sprite. Not healthy for you, I know. So pizza's your favorite?
I don't know that it's my favorite, but if I were going to have a final meal, if I got an email from the mothership, hey, we're picking you up tomorrow, we got another assignment, part of my final meal would have to have at least a slice of pizza, for sure.
Mine would be just a whole one.
Really? What toppings? What are your favorite toppings?
Either just good old plain cheese margarita-ish, or green peppers, mushrooms, onions, sometimes like artichoke or broccoli if they have that stuff. What about you?
Sometimes it's just a good old pepperoni, and that's the only. I don't eat meat except for the occasional pepperoni pizza.
And I used to always say that. So if you could have a food like food, it would be pizza, and then my beverage would be like a 7-Up or Sprite, because it's just, or a healthier version of that. Okay.
Right.
And orange juice, because orange juice is just quenches your thirst.
Huh. Yeah, I never really, like, I'm not crazy about orange juice unless it's like really fresh squeezed. Then I'll do it.
And you live in Florida, right?
I live in Florida. I lived in California for a long time. I lived in the Bay Area for 20 years. I lived in LA and Redondo Beach for 6 months once, and of course, drove down there often.
Okay, we could definitely go on and on, and obviously, like, if you ever visit here, you'll have to do the show in person. We can go for lunch, and
we're gonna go for pizza.
Yeah. We'll go for pizza, and then we'll have pizza for dessert also.
I'm in.
You'd have to try like different places. Okay, I want to talk about breath work, and I also want to talk about if you can remember. I think I can remember before when you were kind of misunderstanding what I was saying, and you said, "Is this saying yes to the higher self, or the?" I think you were talking about maybe fear and love, ego, and something like that. Let's talk about those two things. Breath work.
Breath work.
Yeah.
It's a simple breathing practice. There are a lot of different modalities. The one that I do, it takes about an hour and a half. And you breathe it. It's a yogic type breathing, and amazing stuff happens. I come out of the psychotherapy tradition. My dad was a psychiatrist. My degree's in psychology, and as I know yours is. I was on a track to get a PhD until I found breath work. And then I turned tracks. Because you and I know that in the right hands, with all due respect to psychotherapy, which in the right hands, and obviously yours are good hands, that people can make a real, big. It can be profoundly healing and transformational. Mm-hmm. And we also know that you can sit on somebody's couch for 10, 20, 30 years and nothing really happens, right? Because what's missing is that the understanding of what happened when we were 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever often is not enough, because that trauma has been somaticized, so it now lives in the body. So one of the beauties of breathwork is that it bypasses the mind and it goes to the source of that trauma, which now lives in the body, and it clears it, and with amazing and quick results. So I think ideally, the ideal combination is breathwork combined with coaching or therapy. And in fact, I work with a lot of therapists who when some of their clients are plateaued, they come for a session and boom, it stirs things up. So it's great mutual referrals.
Yeah, and the people. Oh, go on.
No, I was going to say that what's amazing about it is that it heals not only mentally and psychologically and emotionally, but also spiritually and even physically. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds too good to be true. Even though I've been doing it for 30 years, it's like I can't argue with results. Like, it's amazing.
Wow. I just have so many questions. For the people that also are on the couch for like 20, 30 years, we're saying the same thing, because what came to me was you have to have the willingness also. And part of the willingness is being open. And sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes people do need an extra push. And so it sounds like breath work can help. Now, breath work, do you do like the holding one side of the nose? Can you demonstrate a little bit of the type of breath work?
Well, that is, that's a type of, of the pranayama. Breath work is a type of that, but it's longer. And basically this type it's a circular breathing. This one is done in and out the mouth, and you exaggerate the inhale. And it's a connected breath, and you just keep on doing it. And on top of the healing, it can be profoundly blissful, and people attain highly, ecstatic states of oneness. I have a lot of people who will compare it. My God, that was like an experience I had with sacred plant medicine. So that often comes up.
Do you say plant meds?
Yeah, plant medicines. Yeah.
Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I had this couple. They talked all about psilocybin.
Psilocybin, yeah.
Yeah. It's so weird that you said, so I Googled it to make sure that I said it correctly. And I said, okay, so it's psilocybin, because that's what it said according to Google. And they're like, no, it's psilocybin, but we know that there are different ways.
Yeah.
Okay. The mushroom thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Now, do you, for anybody who's watching, do you either talk about this in your book? Do you offer classes?
You mean the breathwork part of it? I haven't, of course, I haven't. I weave it into all my retreats. No matter no matter the theme of my retreat, whether it's relationships or personal empowerment, women's empowerment, life purpose, living heroically. There are two constants I always do. One is the breath work. I've yet to come across anything that heals as profoundly and as quickly and as at many levels. The other thing that I always talk about is understanding the ego mind, because if we want to have relationships that work, a sense of personal empowerment, a life filled with meaning and purpose, we've got to understand how the ego mind works, because that's what keeps us from all those things.
And these retreats, I'm assuming they're in person when there's no COVID?
Right. I haven't done in-person retreats since March. I just launched a year-long virtual coaching program, and I will be teaching breathing practices, but not this longer, more intense breath work, because it's really powerful, and people have intense, cathartic experiences, and people have recovered memories of trauma from childhood. So I feel that for me, I feel like I have to do those in person. I'll do them virtually one-on-one if it's somebody that I know, somebody that I work with, somebody who's got a therapist that they work with, so that I know they've got a support system if something comes up. But I don't feel safe doing a group, because I've had really intense people with really intense experiences. People like bolt out of a room, and I can tell that they're not present. They're reliving something that happened before. I've had people, have suicidal thoughts come up. So if I'm there with them, I feel completely confident that I can handle it. I can quiet them down. I can help them navigate that. But if it's virtually, all I have to do is click, and then what do I do?
You know what? For anybody who's watching, this is a genuine man. Okay. I love that you're just in your integrity, and you could be, let's say, earning more money if you did this breath work virtually, but you really you care about people. So that's really beautiful.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that. Yeah, I feel that it would be morally and karmically irresponsible.
But I'm sure a lot of people do it anyway,
Yeah, it's true.
But maybe the way that you do it is the real way. And so these beautiful healings come out of it. So, go on.
No, I was going to say that, I don't know. I'm not going to evaluate how other people do it, but that's the way that feels.
It's your truth.
Like you're saying, it feels authentic to me, and it wouldn't feel right to me to just do it with somebody. I don't know what's going to pop out of their mind in the middle of the session.
Right.
And then I can't be there to support them.
So will you be doing this again, retreats again?
Yeah.
After the craziness in the world?
I'll definitely do. I'm really glad that I launched this virtual coaching program, because I've known for years I needed to learn how to do that, and I was resisting, and I was busy and traveling all the time and doing retreats all over the world, and then COVID kind of forced my hand.
So now you said it just started. Is that something people can join, or
it just started? I mean, they would have to join this week, because we just had the first session yesterday, so there's still time to catch up. But I'll probably do another cohort in a couple of months in the spring sometime.
Okay, and everybody would find information at
soulfulpower.com.
Soulfulpower.com. Okay, so let's go back and talk about the yes and the no, the higher self, the ego. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And so I mean, we don't have time to get into the deep conversation of the ego, but here's a really helpful metaphor. If you put a baseball in the center of a stadium, that's what the ego is. Who we are is actually the stadium. And we've allowed this tiny, tiny, infinitesimal part of who we are to think that it is all of who we are, and to run the show, and to make some really big choices, about relationships, about what we do with our lives, about whether we move here or there. We make all these choices.
Before you go on, people need, just in case anybody's never taken a spiritual class or anything, when we say ego, it's your mind.
Yes.
People understand what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's the mind, the voice that never shuts up. Go on.
Yeah. That's what the Buddhists call the monkey mind, right? Because it jumps from thought to thought in the same way that it goes from branch to branch. So you could also say it's the sense of self, the sense of individual identity. Like, this is Christian, that's Jaime, right? Ultimately, it's illusion, and it's both a helpful illusion and the source of all our suffering. And it's what I call the self-inflicted mind F. It's mind F. I don't know if I could say that in your show.
You can say it. Go for it.
Yeah, so the self-inflicted mind fuck. There's really no other way to say that. And so how do we begin to write? So if we want to be free, have a sense of personal freedom, if we want to really have a chance of our relationships working, if we want to have a sense of purpose and really step into the roles that we have come here to do and step into our power, we've got to know how the ego mind works. And that's the first part of the book. I walk people through that by the hand so that we could see how it works in ourselves, which is oftentimes not easy to see or not fun to see. But one of the ways that what we're talking about is like, how do we know the difference? Who's talking inside of our heads? The ego, I like to say, went to law school, right? So it's always using big words and complicated concepts and pulling from here and pulling from there as it builds a case to prove that it's right. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets us into trouble in our relationships too. It's that need to be right, which is what one of the drivers of the ego. The other part of us, the stadium part of us, call it whatever you want, the soul, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, the authentic self. It uses very simple language, and it's that still, quiet voice that's inside every one of us, that the holy texts talk about. And the thing is that because it's quiet and it uses very simple language like yes or no, or do that, or I wouldn't go there. When do we get into trouble is when we override it and go there anyway, right? Every time. Mm-hmm. And so, but the thing is like, because the monkey mind, the ego mind is so loud and chaotic, it's really hard to listen to that voice of intuition. That's another way that we can talk about it, to that inner knowing. And so we've got to learn how to quiet our minds so that we can listen to the truth that are inside all of us. All the answers to everything we want to know is inside of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have all the tools. We have all everything is inside, like you said, the answers. It's about sometimes people needing those tools to get past the barriers that are preventing us from accessing.
Exactly. And that's where you and I come in, that we can help them understand how the mind works and how they can get free from it. Yeah.
And it's a lot of the negative self-talking and the stories from childhood, and it takes that shifting, in spiritual psychology school, we do compassionate self-forgiveness. So I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that I'm unlovable. You put your hand on your heart and then your eyes are closed. What is the truth? The truth is that I am lovable. So for every judgment, then you change it around to what is the truth? Because the truth is your soul and the judgment is the ego.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. That's the ego is that harsh inner critic that is so mean and so cruel, and especially to ourselves.
Yeah. And I like pointing out to clients by saying, would you ever, think about the things that start being more conscious about the things that you're saying to yourself all day, every day. Like, I have a pimple, I'm fat, this sucks, I'm not good enough. Would you ever talk to the person you love the most this way?
That's right.
No.
That's right. The things we say to ourselves, we would never say to anybody else.
Right. And we should be loving ourselves the most.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be.
That's where it all begins, right? If we're talking about relationships, how can we expect someone else to love us if we're not loving ourselves? Right? It's to that same capacity that we love ourselves. That's where it all starts. Then we can really love someone else.
Yeah. And it's also how do you know? It's like chicken or the egg. How do you know what love is unless you feel love? So if you can cultivate that true unconditional love for yourself, then you even know what it feels like to love somebody else.
Yeah.
And to be loved.
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
Let me see. Let's see. Did we talk about freeing yourself from self-sabotaging behaviors? Pretty much. Why do people find themselves in self-defeating relationships? Kind of.
Yeah. So how do we stop those patterns of attracting the wrong people? It goes back to the same thing we're talking about, to self-love, right? Yeah. And self-knowledge. And that's how and doing the kind of work that we're talking about, whether it's therapy or coaching or breathwork or a combination thereof, like understanding what the lies are that this misunderstandings from early childhood, the things that we took on as truth that have nothing to do with reality. Like, we're too much of this, not enough of that. None of it true. Just understandings of really young minds that didn't know any better. And so, but in taking this path, which is heroic, because it takes work, and to do life consciously and to do our relationships consciously requires attention and requires work, but it is so infinitely worth it. Because as we, like we were saying before, the more that we deepen our self-knowledge and our capacity of self-love increases, then those patterns that we begin to see, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that. Oh my God, I can't believe I used to settle for that kind of relationship. And the more that we learn to honor ourselves, then that's what we start attracting, that level of self-respect and self-love.
It's so cool. And I love how you're using the word heroic, because that's not a word that I have in my repertoire a lot, but I love it. I want to add it in. I always say, courage, or courage. What I've learned is that courage is more like male, strength of heart is for more female. However, courage, cor, C-O-U-R in Latin, which I'm sure you know, means heart. So it makes sense why courage, bravery means what it means. It's because you need that heart, that strength of heart.
Yeah, that's it. Courage that's the root of courage is heart. In Latin and in all the Romance languages. Corazón in Spanish is,
Yes, yeah.
So absolutely with you. And it's funny that we both teach that too. Makes total sense. And yeah, I think that's one of the ways, another way in which COVID has helped us. And I'm not minimizing the tragic aspects of it, and the death and all the implosion, all of that. But there are some valuable teachings if we're open to those. And one of the things that I think about is it's already expanded the way we think about heroism. Like, we used to think of superheroes when we heard that word, or maybe warriors, maybe first responders. Now we think of, our amazing healthcare practitioners, our doctors, and our nurses and our respiratory therapists, who are EMTs, even the grocery store clerks, and people who are growing our food and placing their lives at risk to keep us fed and keep us going and taking care of our health. And so that, and then what I'm talking about is like even taking it further. It's like, well, what about the rest of us? And what does it mean to live heroically in the 21st century when we don't have the horse hitched outside and the armors and the demons to slay, except the ones in here? And what I'm talking about is exactly, what the message of the book is. So like, how does a hero step into power consciously, right? Responsibly, courageously, and that relationship that is not power over, but power with. How did the second book that's coming out this year is like, how does a hero navigate relationships consciously? And then the third book of the series, it's about life purpose and leadership.
You'll need to join us again for the relationships one.
Oh, we'll keep, I know that you and I will stay in touch, because we're
gonna have to do an event together or something, because man, woman, we're speaking the same language. I
love it. I had the same thought, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, and one more thing. Speaking of man, woman, you have a message for men and you have a message for women. What are these particular messages?
Well, like I started to talk about, the book has a particular message for women, stemming from my conviction that that's the single most important thing that needs to happen in the world. And not to, like put women up on a pedestal or idealize women. Women are equally capable of abusing power, but it's because the world has been running off balance for so long, in this patriarchal system, that we could say, by the way, it's what we're experiencing right now is the end of this patriarchal system and the systems that are just no longer sustainable. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's such a chaotic time of uncertainty, because things that just no longer work. So we're in this phase of implosion, and out of that, the phoenix will rise with new systems. So so that, right, so and when I think about when women are in 50% of power in the world, we'll have a very different relationship to all of it, to war, to poverty, to hunger, to distribution of wealth, to social justice, to how we treat the environment. And so that's where I'm coming from. And then also coming from the perspective that if we expect to find that balance in the world, that at first we have to find it here, because we all have masculine and energy, feminine energies running through our body. So that, and then I have a chapter for men specifically about what it means to live, what it means to live, to be a man in the 21st century. Because I think masculinity needs an upgrade. Like the way we think about what it means to be a man, it's a little dated. And what's happening is, as our women, more and more women are stepping into their power, they're kind of leaving their men behind. And and the toxic masculinity system that has been oppressing women for the last several thousand years, which is absolutely no longer acceptable and never really was. But that same system has also been incredibly oppressive to men, right? Because, and look at some of the symptoms of that. Women in this country outlive men by 5 years, and worldwide by 7 years. The rate of suicide in this country, I think it's 4 times as many men commit suicide as women, and 70% of the suicides are committed by white men. So the system is not working, even for men, right? And part of the reason for that is like this mistaken way that we think of what it means to be a man. You got to walk like this, like a robot, like a transformer, and you can't feel anything because emotions are weakness, and because only little boys don't cry. Mm-hmm. It's toxic. Emotions aren't good. They're not bad. They're not strength. They're not weakness. They're just energies. And we get into trouble with them because we suppress them, and then those suppressed energies have to come out one way or another. So either they're going to explode inappropriately and cause harm in our relationships, or those energies are the body's going to pay a price, right? It's cancer, heart attacks, stomach ulcers, one way or the other. So we better learn how to feel and how to communicate those emotions responsibly.
It's a very interesting topic, and it's making me think of this couple that I'm working with. And the guy admittedly says sometimes he feels like he doesn't know how he feels, and so he doesn't know how to communicate it. And we kind of just got into different tactics and practicing. I also offered to do a session, sessions with just him, so we can get more into the reasons why he has the anger and things like that. But I remember at one point I'm like, we're not trying, the wife also, I'm like, we're not trying to change you into a woman,
Exactly.
The message is not like be feminine-y. It's just, how do you, for the purpose of, so you don't explode, have any violence or on yourself or anybody else. It's okay to have feelings, and it's okay to say them, because that makes a good relationship also.
Yes, and it's not weakness. That's the big lie, that it's weakness. It's not.
It's courage.
Heart. Yes, and it's heroic, and it's mastery to learn what's going on with us. Because I came out of that same environment. My dad was the shrink, who I know was a great shrink, because I heard the feedback from people that used to work with him, but with his own emotions, clueless, no idea.
Yeah.
And so I grew up the same way. And so, maybe this will work with your client. When I first started doing this work 30 years ago, I couldn't tell you what I felt because I didn't know what I was feeling. So I got a grid of emotions. And, I created a grid with them, and I had this is even before cell phones. I had a timer, and I would go off on the hour, and now you can just set it on your phone. And so I'd go off on the hour and say, am I feeling that? Am I feeling that? Am I feeling that? Oh yeah, that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And it worked. It really worked. Did that for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's amazing. It just takes practice.
Yeah.
Once you start doing it. Okay, so once again, how can people find you?
Best way is my website, soulfulpower.com.
Okay, and social media, what about?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram.
Is it Soulful Power?
Soulfulpower.com, yeah.
or your socials are listed on your website?
Yeah.
Okay. And as always, anybody can reach me at therelationshipexpert.com. So thank you, Christian, for joining us today.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm so happy to meet with you. And I can't wait to have a pizza with you.
I know, and we'll definitely be in touch and have some pizza for sure and do something with this speaking the same language thing.
Absolutely.
So thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us. Join us every week on Love Talk Live on LA Talk Radio. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.